Americans seem, in my replies, and I seem to be getting a lot more American replies lately, to not understand Europe, European politics, or how or what the EU even is. And I think it's quite important to understand that if you're approaching Europe as some sort of America light or the European Union as a diet United States, that is not what it is. It's a functionally different institution that functions in a myriad of different ways. What is important to understand is you're talking about dozens of individual countries that each have equally complicated politics as your own. And every single one of them has a unique history and culture, sometimes multiple cultures. And this also has a dynamic in how they interact with their neighbors, both inside the European Union and outside of the European Union. And we're talking about a lot of countries here. It is also very important to understand that the European Union isn't just a federal government over some states. Yes, they're called member states, but we're discussing states meaning countries, individual countries. And the EU is a union of separate sovereign nations that come together to give over some of that sovereignty to achieve collective aims that benefit all of Europe. First and foremost, the European Union was founded as a means to prevent World War III from happening in Europe and a war between specifically France and Germany. And thankfully, since 1945, France and Germany have not gone to war, nor have any of the member states of the European Union. If you're not from Europe, you would do well to understand each of these countries individually in their own context, and then work your way from there on out. It's also important to understand that the European Union itself and its institutions have their own internal politics going itself. So we're talking about 28 separate entities we need to be discussing. And then each of these have various institutions and levels, and in each of these countries, there are different districts or states, provinces, whatever, Landa. You have to understand it is a very complicated thing to talk about Europe as a whole in any way that doesn't immensely flatten down all the politics happening across the continent. Yes, there are continental wide trends. Yes, there are things that the EU does as a whole, but that is very different to what is happening in countries like the United States or in individual states. So it is very important to understand the EU on its own terms, not how you're projecting your own national politics onto the EU or European states generally.